Modern-day manufacturing is not only cost-efficient, but it is also extremely satisfying to see. With hundreds of large machines continuously working to make the perfect products for you to use, factory processes today are truly a sight to behold. So, let me walk you through some of the most amazing factory production processes with modern machines. Number 5. Cold roll forming. One of the most satisfying processes is the creation of steel profiles that are made from steel coils. The process is known as cold roll forming and was initially introduced in France in 1930. Cold roll forming consists of gradually and continuously forming a steel profile. A strip of steel coil is first unrolled and is then flattened in a succession of several rolls by rollers whose shapes and numbers vary according to the complexity of the desired steel profile. You might not know about this. These rollers are always made of high-strength steel so they can flatten out the steel coils perfectly. After this, a steel profile is formed, which is one of the last parts of the entire process. And the profile is also formed in a way to avoid the cracks or even the breaks that occur in the cold bending and the press or stamping processes. Finally, this whole satisfying operation produces a certain surface hardening, known as the skin effect. This manufacturing process was initially limited to hot and cold rolled steel strip sections, but it has now gradually expanded to include stainless steel and aluminum and copper alloy profiles as well. Number 4. Retreading. Retreading is a satisfying manufacturing process that consists of a variety of different steps. After a tire is made, it is retreaded to assure quality control so that the very best tires go out in the market. The first part of this process is to conduct an initial inspection of the tire to see if it works according to the regulation standards. After this, the buffing process removes the remaining tread and sidewall rubber from the casing of the tire using high-speed revolving rasps and brushes. A granular residue is produced during the buffing process. This residue is extracted using high-powered fans and collected in large hoppers ready for recycling. After this, the buffed casing is inspected by someone with an experienced eye. And if they see any visible cuts or exposed cords, they remove those by hand. You might think it's a difficult job, but the process is actually really satisfying and is known as buzzing. After the condition of the casing is satisfactory, a technician approves of it and forwards it on to the next process of checking for penetrations in the inner wall of the cases. As you can probably tell, this process is meticulous and takes a lot of individual effort. In order to locate any minute holes within the inner wall of the casing, it is subjected to a penetration detection process, which involves high voltage electricity being passed through the tire while it is rotated at high speeds. And if a hole is detected, an arc is produced, which stops the machine and alerts the operator to the location of the hole so that the repair can be made. After this, during the building process, new tread material is applied or stitched to the casing using a patented computer-controlled process. A continuous strip of premium rubber compound is wrapped around the tire whilst it revolves on an inflatable chuck. The curing process sees the built tire placed into a hot, segmented radial matrix within a curing press. The tire is heated for up to 95 minutes at 155 degrees Celsius and also inflated to a maximum of 300 psi. Once the cured tires have been deflated, removed, cooled, and trimmed, they are ready for the final inspection process. They are inspected thrice before going through another scanning process known as shearography, which detects minor separations in the tire that are invisible to the naked eye. Number 3. Manufacturing springs. For more than 100 years, the engineers at companies like the Yoast Superior Company have designed and manufactured a range of compression, extension, torsion, wire, stampings, and custom springs. Spring making might not sound as interesting, but it's actually a really amazing process. The process starts with design. Customers like you choose the material and finish, and then provide the spring specifications you need. This actual spring making process is done using a spring coiler, which is a mechanical spring making machine. You might not be aware of this, but the spring technician performs what is known in the industry as a setup on the machine to prepare the spring machine for creating a specific type of spring. Some examples of the kinds of springs you can make include compression springs, extension springs, and torsion springs. This process involves feeding the wire into a set of rollers that pulls the spring wire into the wire guides, then comes in contact with a coiling point, or points, which coils the wire backwards, forming it into a coil or a pigtail. It might sound a little complicated, but it's really simple. Number 2. Knife making. A knife is a staple tool for almost all households in the world. You'd probably agree that a kitchen is incomplete without a variety of knives in it. But we usually don't pay a lot of attention to how knives are manufactured. So, you'll be happy to know that the knife-making process is one of the most satisfying ones out there. After a sample is taken, a process of reverse engineering is followed where a new knife is built based on the dimensions of an older sample. First, an optical comparator is used to build a computerized model of your machine knife blade. This assesses the physical size, precise angles, and specifications like blade serrations and mounting pinholes. Next, a Rockwell testing machine is used to determine how hard the sample blade is. The metal's existing toughness is also analyzed. Then, a metallurgical analysis is conducted to find out the existing metal's characteristics. Finally, precise physical measurements are done. This process involves a computerized press to load strain on the blade, measuring with digital calipers, and using a precision micrometer similar to what's in a machinist's toolbox. After this, the knife's profile is cut from steel stock. Different cutting processes include water jet cutting, where extremely high pressurized water slices through the metal. The other cutting method is done by laser or amplified light. Laser cutting is done through modern machines like the Trump Laser 2025 machine for the most accurate cuts possible. Once the knife is cut or profiled, it is put through a series of heat processes. This determines the final hardness and toughness of your blade. There's a 3-step process to hardening. This includes hardening, in which iron-based steel alloys get sent to a furnace with temperature set at 1,750 degrees Fahrenheit. The type of metal being used to make the knife determines how long the blade stays at this heat. After this, quenching takes place. In this, the blade in the oven is removed and rapidly cooled. Usually that's by dropping it in water. This is when it makes a satisfying sizzling sound. After this, tempering takes place. The blade is tempered to lower its hardness for optimum performance. You might not believe this, but the blade goes back again to an oven at a temperature between 300 and 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 hours or more. Once your machine knife is properly tempered, it's ready for finishing, grinding, and sharpening. Number 1, making candy. Everyone loves candy, but do you know exactly how it's made? If you don't, you'll be surprised to know how satisfying it is to make candy using all kinds of modern machines and factories. The first step of candy production involves blending the ingredients together in a large vessel. Typically, a stainless steel kettle is used that is equipped with automatic mixers. Ingredients can be poured or pumped into the batch by workers known as compounders. At this step, the water, sugar, corn syrup, and other processing ingredients are combined. After this, the ingredients are heated up to over 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 141.5 degrees Celsius and allowed to cook until they form amber-colored liquid. While it is still hot, the sugar mixture is poured on water-cooled tables. The candy cools slightly and is sent to the working machines. These devices are equipped with arms that stretch the candy repeatedly until it looks silky white. The whole stretching process is super satisfying, and while the candy is being stretched, A line worker adds the proper amount of flavoring to it. During this time, another worker then takes a large portion of the warm candy and forms it into a loaf. Part of the loaf is put off to the side, dyed, and cut into strips. For the traditional candy cane, this portion is dyed red. It will become the red stripes in the final product. The loaf of candy is then sent to the extruder machines to convert it into a candy cane. And after the candy cane is formed, it is put into its packaging. Some manufacturers wrap the candy cane in a clear plastic. This is done right as it is exiting the extruder. The plastic is then wrapped around the candy cane and sealed by a heat sealer. And that's how you get your delicious candy. So, what do you think? Are these processes satisfying? Do you want to go to a real factory and check some of these out? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.